All right, fellas, VT Corner, our favorite segment of college football Monday. Hokies lose to Syracuse 38-31. I feel like I should turn my light off and just have the red light only as my background, go into dark Pete mode because this was rough. This was a rough one. And despite being suited up in warmups, Drones did not start in this one. Tootin did not play in this one either. These are things we were not aware of midweek and kind of were hitting the boards. The Tootin thing never really hit the boards, at least from my eye. But the Drones thing, there was a lot of rumors going around on Friday for sure.
Yeah, the rumor mill started about Friday, and it quickly, Friday morning to Friday afternoon, went from rumor mill to kind of confirmed with inside the know people. Apparently he was out in warmups, running with the first team, throwing, looked ready to go, and full pads, looked ready to go, and then kickoff comes and he's in sweats. Bashal Tune, I think a little bit more understandable. He didn't do anything in practice this week, regardless of what social media looked like, and it just doesn't seem like it would have been wise to put him out there as beat up as he is. So that one made a little bit more sense.
They really threw us off the scent. This was like, if you're talking about gamesmanship and like the Bill Belichick school of injury reports or whatever, like this was a masterclass.
Well, it obviously worked, right, Pete?
Yeah, I mean, it worked for the first three quarters. So we quickly got up to a 14-0 lead, some super efficient drives by Colin Schlee, who was the starter, 14-3 at the half, and then 21-3 in the third quarter before things started falling apart. Syracuse scored 21 unanswered, took a 24-21 lead. We tied it up. Then we got a touchdown. It was 31-24 with 5 minutes left. And of course, just like we've seen so many times this year, Syracuse goes right down the field and ties it. Pry decides to play for OT, which we can decide. If we want to get into that later, we can, but he plays for OT. We fail to score after Syracuse scores. Game over. They, run onto the field and enjoy. This was a brutal loss. It was the fourth time we've essentially lost the game on the final possession. And we've only had 4 losses, guys. So pretty much every time we lose, it has to be in some kind of dramatic drive, overturned call, overtime situation. But I thought the offense played really well and did enough to win. Irby, what did you think about how Colin Schlee led the offense?
Yeah, and I think that this was probably part of why Drones and Tootin, why they opted to be more cautious, was I think that they liked the personnel behind them, and B, they liked the matchup, because ultimately, like, Syracuse essentially parted like the Red Sea for most of that game defensively. Granted, they turned it on when it mattered and forced a big fumble on Coney and all that. But I mean, Malachi Thomas had his best rushing game that he's had in 2 years. That's not a coincidence.
And Coney ran the ball well besides that fumble.
Right. Yep. I mean, they had huge holes to run through. Schlee made some really good throws. So I don't want to take anything away from him. Like, he looked poised back there, played a great game, made a lot of like big scrambles, especially on like short third downs and things like that, where he would get to the edge and they couldn't catch him. So yeah, I mean, I want to give credit there. I mean, I think it's fair to say that even with Bashal Tootin, you probably score even more points and you probably ice the game away even more. That doesn't take away from the fact that the defense still ultimately choked. And
they melted down. And Sam, can you give us your perspective on what happened with the defense?
I'm getting to the point with this defense where I think there is a clear mentality issue with late game scenarios. And I think it starts from the top down. I think they are allowing the same play to beat them time and time again throughout a game. Against Vanderbilt, it was the offset pistol, 21 personnel, speed option to the right. Triple option maybe, but usually it's just a speed option to the right. Against Rutgers, it was the same RPO tight end to the flat with an orbit motion behind him.
Roll out, yep.
Against, who was the other one score loss? I'm probably forgetting. And Miami's a little different, right?
Yeah,
Miami's
it was
a great
different.
offense. That's different. But again, another situation where you needed one stop. You get one stop defensively and you win the game. The third time this season, Virginia Tech defense has been in that scenario, and
we've had leads in the fourth quarter,
walked down the field and scored. Like Syracuse was toying with them on that last drive. Syracuse had a 15-yard penalty to start that drive, and they still just ran the ball down your throat or ran an RPO to score. They toyed with you to drop that clock down. Like that is just a demoralizing and utterly.
Syracuse scored 5 touchdowns on their last 6 possessions.
How do you let that happen?
It's unreal.
How do you let that happen?
And
how many damn defensive coaches do you need on the staff to let that not happen? Do you need to hire another one? I mean, it is just malpractice.
Because they were doing more or less the same things. They were getting the ball out really quick. We only had 1 sack on McCord and 2 tackles for loss on the team. They ran the ball fine, about their average, but I thought we might be able to do a little bit better against the run. But them getting the ball out quick and over and over again, and just us not being able to cover. We're not X's and O's experts, but 5 out of 6 with the touchdowns at the end of the game, you gotta get a stop.
The guy who is the slot receiver on the right side is going to run a slant every damn time. Every single play, that guy is running a slant.
Yes, for sure.
And no one was there. We're playing outside leverage coverage with no help with the middle linebacker. None. I mean, this is why it is so frustrating to me, because on one hand, I see progress being made, and games are not binary win-loss, right? You can improve and still lose. And this team has improved a lot year over year. But my goodness, when your team has overcome what this Tech team overcame, going on the road to play a good team without your 2 team leaders, playing that well, you score 31 points, you play a relatively clean game, and you just absolutely lose it at the end because you can't get 2 stops. You needed 2 stops in that second half, and you only got 1.
That's what it is.
Those are the it balloons, by the way. Those aren't happy birthday balloons.
On the surface, Drones and Tootin don't play. Syracuse is not a terrible team. Pretty good team, pretty good quarterback. You go up to the Dome, a place we don't like, and we won't get into whether it's cursed or not, although the evidence is mounting. And you take them to overtime, and you almost win the game. But it's not that simple, because the way it unfolded, being up 18 points in the third quarter, giving up 5 touchdowns on 6 possessions, it changes the perception of the loss. And it went from being a very excusable spot to lose to being kind of an inexcusable loss. And I think the fans they took it hard. They're taking it hard. We're taking it hard. We're fans, right? Like, a lot of us have taken this loss hard. I know Pat did. He talked a little bit about it on their show this week. And Irby, I want to ask you, does this loss change your perspective on the program in general? Because Sam just commented on, like, there has been improvement year over year over year. But does this loss, not in and of itself, but taken in context of the season, change your perception of the program?
I just think it makes the last 3 games pretty dire. And I think you have to play well against Clemson. And like, I don't know. I won't call Clemson a must win, but like, even then you lose to Clemson and then beat Duke and UVA, which is not a guarantee, and you're 7-5. And it's like, well, what were we talking about here?
Absolute floor. Like that,
we talked about that being the floor. Yes. Mm-hmm. And I don't know. I mean, I do want to take the good with the bad. I don't know.
You've really been fighting the good fight in the chat.
I have been, because I do think that there are some good things here. I don't want to view it so black and white as to either this is a disaster or this is amazing, because it's somewhere in the middle, and I won't get too into our previous coaching tenure, but I think there were a lot more red flags in that one than there are this one. Yeah.
And it really comes down to one thing in this one. One major red flag is in-game coaching, getting the guys ready to play. And maybe that's 2 things, maybe that's 3 things. Right. I don't know, but like, it's game day stuff.
Can you solve this massive problem that you have? Because like, and I think you make a good point, Pete, about how it's like, okay, if you came into the game and you were like, all right, we're missing our quarterback and our running back, like we might not feel good about winning, but then that game actually happens and we should have won.
Yes.
Same with Miami. It's like, oh, well, no one thought we were going to beat Miami. Are you kidding me? We should have beat Miami. And that game becomes
up 10
so
in the
much more
fourth.
disappointing. Yes. So I don't know. It's just hard to evaluate.
It's the 1-11 in one score games. That's the number that's been thrown around. I think they mentioned it on Cover 3. Our chats, it's so hard to get past. At first, it's kind of a fluke. Okay, we came back in some games. Now we're 1-11 in one score games under Pry.
It's an entire season. It's an entire season of one score games and you're 1-11. Yeah. Like statistically, that is so improbable. And it is. I don't think I've ever seen a coach worse. I really don't. Like Scott Frost at Nebraska was better than this by a significant margin.
He was 5-22.
5-22.
Maybe 5-23, but it was somewhere in that ballpark. But like this, so this is why for me, this loss, I'm not going to say it massively changes my perception of the program, but the issue of not being able to win close games, that fear, it just keeps rearing its ugly head in the most brutal ways. And that slow grind away at all of our souls, that's what's making me change my perception of the program. Because I do believe that Pry is running a good program, has big boy aspirations, is repairing relationships. Recruiting has improved since the end of the Fuente tenure. Maybe not as much as we want, but has improved. We have bright spots all across the roster, young guys that are playing well and getting better. But if you're getting better and the roster is better and you're still losing every close game, the end result isn't better. We could very well end up 6-6 this year again. And so that is why it has changed my like this loss without Drones and Tootin. And maybe I'm wrong for this, but this loss and the way it happened, it does change my perception of the program a little.
Yeah, it almost feels like I feel like I'm saying this like at least once a month, is that Virginia Tech's at a crossroads as a program, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like it feels
every
like
game feels like a big game.
It's like you kind of go up and then you go back down, and it's literally just this wave. And I remember saying this exact same thing after the Rutgers loss of like, all right, well, shit's hitting the fan here. Mm-hmm. Like you got to nut up or shut up. And what did they do? They almost beat Miami, and then they won 3 in a row. And it's like, that's awesome.
Yeah,
great. And then here we are with another disappointment, and here we are at another crossroads. And it was the same last year, where I remember after the NC State loss, I was fuming. And I was like, if we lose to UVA and don't make a bowl game, it's over.
Yeah.
But then what did we do? We won by 40.
And that's what does tend to happen, right? Like when we hit the DEF CON,
right?
It kind of like, even in the Fuente year in 2019, like we hit the DEF CON against Duke. And it's been a very similar season in the way, like, we won. We came close to beating Notre Dame. That's the Miami game. We won 3 in a row. Like, that's what just happened. And so if you go out and you beat Clemson, you beat Duke, and you beat UVA, and this is your only loss among the last 7 games, well, then that's pretty darn good. And
I would still say,
but there's a lot of ifs there.
If you're unable to win close games, you're never going to win anything of importance.
Yeah.
Because you're going to be playing a team on your level, and you're going to have to win close.
Like, that is, Brent Pry could be the coach for another decade here and would still have a pretty abysmal record in one-score games.
Well, that's what I was thinking about. If he wins the next 6 in a row, like,
it's still pretty bad.
He's 7-11 in one-score games.
And it is, you don't just figure that out, right? Yeah. Like, we have enough data to realize. And the issue too is it's not always the same reason. But a lot of times it is because your defense needs one stop and you can't get it, or a combination of your offense can't do anything to start the game, like the Vanderbilt and Rutgers game. So
or to start a season. I mean, God, it takes them a whole month to figure out what's system.
Yeah, it takes Alabama a month to figure out who his good players are, which is a big problem too.
We're 3 years in, and we've got to take 6 weeks to figure out what the offense is. Who should we be using? And I know he's been a young coordinator and he's been learning on the job, which maybe isn't the right way to go about it. They're probably, if this season ends and we win 2 out of the last 3, let's just say that, I think we'll see some staff changes. I really do.
I think you're at a point where you need to shake things up a little bit. There is this team doesn't do anything well enough to warrant a pay raise. And you're kind of at the point after year 3 where you need to start doing that.
Right. Like the things that they do well, what we do well is kind of spread evenly across a lot of different things. We are not elite at any one particular thing, minus Tootin just being elite.
An APR, yeah.
An APR, yes. We have a couple star players, which we didn't have in our first year or our last year under Fuente. So that's nice. That's been a nice change. But anyway, this was a bummer of a game, and we have to cut it off because Sam and I do have to talk a little bit more about it and about Clemson later this week. So whether it's the referees or some of the coaching decisions that happened in this game, we're not going to get into that tonight, but you'll hear it on the Too Deep Show. Go ahead, Sam.
Real quick say one thing? When I was watching this game to start the second half, I was literally like 30 minutes down, 30 to go. 1 minute down, 29 to go. 2 minutes down, 28 to go. That's what I was doing this whole game. And I feel like that's the mentality that the Tech coaching staff kind of needed. And they didn't get it. We'll get into this Wednesday, but I think philosophically, the way Virginia Tech goes into some of these games against better or equal teams is what is putting them in these really bad situations. And
yeah, I think it's an overarching game planning failure.
This game changed in 6 minutes.
And it surprised 6 minutes, right? Because I don't think they expected to be up 21-3.
No.
And then once it started flipping back, they were free falling and they couldn't figure it out.
After the drive after Syracuse made it 21-10, you knew Syracuse was going to get another a touchdown to match Tech's touchdown right there. Tech was 3 and out. The drive took 41 seconds. It had 2 plays and a run with your wide receiver. And then the next drive, Syracuse scores in 2:30. And then the drive after that, you fumble the ball in another turnover inside your own half of the field. And now all 4 losses this year have been by 1 score and as the result of 7 points off of a turnover on your own side of the field.
Could we just not turn it over in our own end?
Yeah.
Could we just not do that for a game?
And that's one of the things that I'm like, I can't put this on Brent Pry. Because
that fumble from Coney is not on Brent Pry.
If that fumble doesn't happen, Tech wins this game, and they probably win it by 2 scores.
Because we were moving the ball, we were gonna drive it down the field. Neither team was being very effective stopping either one.
That was that punt and that fumble were the only 2 drives in the second half Tech didn't score.
Jeez,
and that was the game. That's the difference, and that's why I struggle. If you're out there saying fire Pry, 1, you're not tethered to reality of college football or the financials of Virginia Tech. And number 2, you're not actually really watching why Virginia Tech is losing some of these games.
And then there's 1-11.
So
it's
but
both.
Again, look at the Georgia Tech game, his first year. What happened there? Keyshawn King fumbles it inside the 10-yard line as he's going into score.
He needs to get some kids that can't fumble, that don't fumble the ball. And even Tootin against BC was responsible for their comeback. So he's not immune either.
Too, yeah.
Right.
Drones loves just dropping the ball next to his own goal line, dude.
Well, let's not pile on the guys that didn't play. We love Tootin and we like Drones. Those guys have been good for us.
I feel bad ending it. I feel really bad for Tech fans. This sucks.
It's tough. Can we take a beer break to kind of heal a little bit? You guys drinking beer?
I got a bourbon.
Oh, nice. Very nice. Rob, what are you drinking over there?
I am drinking Angel's Envy. It's hands down my favorite bourbon. Cool bottle too. I don't have the bottle on me right now, but it's got some sick angel wings on it. But it's a bourbony bourbon.
It is.
Yeah, but it's got some caramel notes to it. It just tastes like your classic high quality bourbon. It's only, I think it's only 88 proof, so it's not or maybe 87 proof, so it's not super strong, but it's just a good sipping whiskey. Really love it.
People love it, and it's good high quality stuff. Nice. Sam, are you drinking anything over there?
Maker's Mark with a little simple syrup.
Ooh. Love it. You guys are having some fun on Monday dealing with this loss. I am drinking the Astro Zombie. I don't know if you guys have had an Aslan.
Before you start this, dark liquor on a Monday night is not fun. This is not for fun. This is
healing only.
Yes.
Yeah, I told you,
on,
Pete. I
this
needed to
is a
expense
cool
some
beer.
Marlboros. So,
Sam, you've been to Aslan, whether it's in
Yes.
Virginia Beach. I'm not sure if you've ever been to the Nova location.
I haven't.
But Astro Zombie, it's been around for a little bit. I forget exactly where I got this, but I was down at a beer fest in Richmond. 6.7% alcohol. It's not in New England. It's a little bit lighter in color than just your regular American IPA. It's very good. I think the Falcon Smash is something they're better known for and probably slightly better in my eyes. But this Astro Zombie is getting it done tonight. I'm very much enjoying it. It's just a little bitter, not a West Coast, but like somewhere between that West Coast and a New England. Like, I don't exactly know how I describe it, but I think that's about as good as I can do. The Astro Zombie from Aslan. I'm enjoying it.